Joining us now, she is the head coach of the Wichita State Shockers, fresh off another NCAA tournament appearance. I speak of our good friend on the show, Kristi Bredbenner, who joins us on the show. Coach, how you doing?
Great, great. Got a little workout in this morning and got my energy going, so feeling good.
Let's talk about a little bit before we get into this year. When you think back to last year, you made the NCAA's. Once again, you got sent to a Stax regional in Fayetteville. What do you think about when you think of last year?
I proud. I'm proud of the girls. I thought, we lost such a core group of seniors in that 2021 class that really had one of the best seasons in program history. And I'm proud of the girls and the way they fought and competed, knowing that we were losing five starters and, some pit players that were really impact players within our program. And to see, our athletes step up, obviously Sid and Addie played a big role, but to see Lauren Lucas step up and go from being a kid that didn't get a ton of at bats to being one of our best hitters and a clutch hitter in a 3-hole spot that really helped, I think, Sid and Addie in the long run. And to see Neely go out with a great year and Zoe come in as a transfer and do really well and fit in great. And I think something for us for the future is to see Allie Cooper get the innings that she got as a freshman, and so hopefully you look at her now as kind of our veteran, which is nuts. And like you said, we'll touch on the youth of the pitching in the league, but I thought Aaron and Caitlin, gave everything that they had, and we weren't as good as the year before when it comes to the record at the end of the year, but I thought we competed as hard and really set some high standards offensively for our program. So, it's just about continuing to grow and learn and move forward and hopefully be a consistent contender in the postseason.
You're one of the people I thought of this year. I did volleyball. We were talking off the air. I did volleyball play by play this fall. And volleyball and women's soccer experimented with seeding 32 teams for the NCAA tournament to create more balanced bracketing, maybe some less predictable, quote unquote, regional matchups. I thought of you because you were in Fayetteville, paired up with Arkansas and Oregon this year. And of course, the famous one a couple years back when you went to Norman, when everybody was shocked. Patty Gasso was critical of that you shouldn't have been in Oklahoma. So obviously, I want to ask you about that. Do you think softball should go to 32 seats? Because I feel like you would benefit from that either when you host or even if you're not hosting, just from a traveling standpoint, because you've kind of gotten a tough draw the last 2 years, probably tougher than you probably, not that, I mean, every regional is tough. So let's obviously every team's good. But that being said, uh, the tough part from your end, it seems like you can guess where you're going to the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally we're going to travel to somebody within driving distance, and we've got a lot of great softball within driving distance. And, now you add Oklahoma State to that, so we've got three schools with Arkansas, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State that have been getting into the postseason, hosting pretty much every year for the last couple of years. And it's funny, Eric, that you brought that up. I'm excited. I think that is something that needs to be looked at with softball. 2 years ago, when we did get sent to Norman, I actually talked to a couple people that were on the national committee about that idea and just said, this just seems like a no-brainer to me. I get cost and the financial piece of it, but at the end of the day, sometimes we're spending more sending the third and fourth seed places than we are sending the two seed. And to me, that doesn't make sense. And so, I'm actually on the national committee now. I kind of worked my way up. I was on the RAC for 2 years and national committee this year. And it is something that's a hot topic. I think they're excited to talk about it and kind of see financially what the results were from soccer and volleyball to see if this is something that we can move to in women's softball. I think it would be huge for our programs.
Yeah, I think the tournament you should see, matchups based on what they did on the field, not based on, hey, I could, 400-mile radius to some extent. And, again, for those that didn't follow it, volleyball and soccer, a 3 and the 4 seed would still be under that 400-mile radius. But that would, yeah, you're right. It is kind of interesting that, the 4 seeds get to travel more as a student experience than the 2 seeds, which is kind of odd on that front. You mentioned you're part of the committee. Talk about that because you are heavily involved in the sport. What got you interested in being more involved in the game beyond just coaching?
Well, I think, one, being asked and kind of doing our part, trying to grow the game a little bit. And I think now that I've experienced a little bit more of the postseason, I think sometimes having that mid-major perspective is good on some of these committees. I'm not afraid to play a tough schedule and really follow softball. And so when they asked me to be a part of the rack, I was like, oh yeah, that could be pretty cool, and really enjoyed it. And then Natalie going from Memphis to Southern Miss ended up, since there was a gap there, they had the opening, and so asked me to jump on. So I'm excited about it. There's a lot to it. Obviously for me, I'm all in when it comes to watching softball and keeping tabs on everybody. And so that's a big part of being on the national committee. But I think the biggest thing is just, being able to understand the game and doing what's best for everybody, not just, your friends and yourself and things like that. You got to have a holistic view of the entire softball community, and hope that at the end of the day, we're putting the 64 best teams in the postseason. And I think it's pretty cool to be a part of something that special.
It's good to have a lot of different perspectives. What's one thing you've learned since you got into it that you didn't know going in? You had maybe you had a preconceived thought going in, then you were like, oh, whoa, I didn't realize this.
Well, I think the time commitment. I think people don't realize, you just think that's kind of flip it and, oh, these teams, this and that, when you're trying to decipher the SEC, which, a lot of those teams get in, almost all of them, but you're trying to figure out how to put this team over this team because this team beat that one and they beat them. And, the time that the committee puts in, I think, no one, not to say nobody gives them credit, but people don't realize. I mean, they're very passionate about getting things right. They don't want to leave somebody out that belongs. It's a really tough decision. And so they get into a room and, you're thinking of all these different strategies of, okay, what about this and that and things like that. And it's a pretty big time commitment and a lot of passion in that room for softball. And so I think that's something I learned pretty quick.
Well, I'm excited you're involved in that. I think that's good for the game. Like people like you are involved and contributing to that, considering you're such a busy schedule, and of course you're coaching your own program. And let's talk about your team this year coming in. And obviously, everybody will start with offensively. I think I'm like the 1 millionth person that will ask you, but obviously Sydney McKinney and Addie. Obviously, I feel like they've been there 100 years personally, but especially Sydney. But what's it like to have those two, and especially Sydney, back and leading your offense and leading your team?
Well, the leadership part of it's been awesome for us this year. I think that's something that she really embraced last year. And, that's not easy. We had really great leaders in 2021 that were all seniors that had been a part of the program for a long time. And it was time finally for them to pass the torch when they left. And I thought Sid has always been a great leader by example. And now she's kind of taken on that vocal leader in the locker room. And I think last year doing that and just having such a wonderful season and being such a good person, great teammate, made it really easy for this team to trust her. And so that's a big part for her this year, I think, is that leadership role. I think with Addie, you talk about how you feel like they've been in the program forever. I feel like it's gone by so fast. I mean, Addie's a junior. Sid, this is her last year. And just the two of them. I mean, lead by example. And one of the hardest things for people that have had really tremendous seasons is being able to mentally escape the slump, the pressures, oh, I got to be just as good as I was last year. And I thought, I was very worried about Addie about that last year. I thought, oh, she had 22 home runs, unbelievable freshman year. And obviously she exuded our expectations. I mean, she had a wonderful season. And so to me, it's just seeing her maturity from that perspective, especially this year. I mean, she's worked really hard on her swing. She's got a couple little changes in her swing that I think she'll be more efficient and have some more success and hopefully continue to get better. But I think the biggest thing is just seeing her face adversity. When she's struggling a little bit in years past, she would kind of get down and, you could kind of see the shoulders a little bit. And I think this year she's just totally working through it and, realizing that one or two swings can change you back into feeling good about yourself. And so just seeing both of their maturities on different perspectives. I mean, Addie's not a vocal leader by any means, definitely a leader by example, and that's okay. You've got to have a good mix of both within your program. But just seeing Sid, and then Zoe Jones, obviously another fifth year for us. Between the two of them, I think they've kind of taken the girls under their wing and really kind of keeping the focus on how they can get better at softball, how they can have a great program, being great leaders, being there for their teammates, and kind of spreading that type of an attitude throughout the program. So that's been huge for those two.
What's it been like seeing them? They've gotten a lot of attention in the preseason rankings and these top 100 rankings nationally. I know Cindy's been doing a podcast interview and stuff like that. Long overdue, honestly. They both have deserved this recognition. But do you talk to those two about the fact that there's more exposure now? There's more eyeballs on them a little bit because of what they've done. Is that something that you bring up with them to make sure that, hey, just still be yourself?
Yeah, I think they know. I think we talk a lot, within our program of being yourself and, being able to deal with pressure and being a good teammate. And, there's a lot of different conversations happening throughout the season that I think address some of that type of stuff. But, we don't talk about each and every podcast or ranking. I'm not a big rankings person. I think that some of that stuff is just, it's really great pub and it's awesome for them individually, but I don't know the basis which some of it comes from and things like that. And so to me, that's just kind of one of those things that you put on social media and you get excited about, but I don't think it needs to go to your head by any means. And so we talk a little bit about that. I mean, hey, it's day by day, get better each day, 1% better every day, and put the work and the time in. And, because at the end of the day, the game doesn't know any different. You have to go in there and put the time in and the work, and stay humble. And, I'm proud of Sid. Sid's used her platform in a totally different level, I think, that a lot of student athletes have. She's really focused on, being a well-rounded person and understanding what makes you happy, and, growing the game to aspire young kids. I think she's, to me, and again, we're new at this NIL stuff and things like that, but, she's not, I don't think that she doesn't turn things down very much. She's going to do what anybody asks, because there's nothing too small for her. And I think that that's awesome. I think that's what young women are looking for, as somebody, as a role model, to give them some time, give them a chance, teach them, about themselves and, what they do, off the field just as much as when they're on. And I think Addie and some of the other girls are just starting to figure out the NIL a little bit, and maybe haven't been as, I wouldn't say they haven't been as into it, but, that's not as big of a deal to them. I think Sid, this is her last year to take advantage of it. And I think she's done a really nice job of that. And, it'll be interesting to kind of see what her future is in softball. We're excited for her, because I think she's got a really positive future, hopefully playing some pro softball after she gets done this year.
Yeah, exciting, great player to watch. I know she's had some. Obviously, she's played a little bit internationally as well, right? With do you sense a difference in her when she got a chance to play and be involved with U.S. national team? Do you sense maybe even more confident? Like, sometimes I've heard that from people that have played with U.S. national in variety, either the juniors or whatever, that when they come back from that, they're even more confident than even before.
100% more drive, more determination. I think getting, it's just like anybody that gets a little taste of something they want, and then they figure out, oh man, I want it so bad, I want to get back there. So there's that drive. I mean, I wouldn't put anybody up against Sid. She works the hardest of anybody in our program. And she does the things that no one likes to do. She's not one of those that just does the things she's good at all the time. I mean, she pushes herself, and she's in the weight room. And I mean, there's a considerable difference between Sid this year and last year. And I think that's what we're excited about. She's got more power. And actually, I told her the other day, I was like, I'm a little worried about your power. And she was like, why? I said, because sometimes your hits were kind of ugly. You just beat them out with your speed, and her speed's just as fast. But hopefully she still gets those duck farts every now and then when she hits one over the shortstop's head, and then they're not going to the left fielder. But, there's definitely a drive. She wants to try to make Team USA, and she wants to be in the mix in that type of a conversation. And I think for her, knows what it takes to do it. got to put the jersey on for a little bit of time in Japan, and that was enough for her to realize, okay, there's something to work for here. And it'll be exciting to see, if that's something that's she can achieve, because I believe, I mean, she's one of the best athletes that I've ever been around, coached, played, watched her play. I mean, she's something special.
She hit 522 last year. I don't know if people can put that in context. I felt like she was the best hitter. I've watched her up close. Obviously, you've coached her. You've coached a lot of great players. I mean, what makes her arguably the best hitter in the country, and probably going to end up being, by the time this season ends, maybe the best hitter in your program history, arguably, which is saying a lot. You've had a lot of talented players, but my goodness, there's not anything she can't do on the field, right? I mean, that I've
Well,
seen.
no, and I think for her, the difference is her speed. I mean, like I said, I mean, if she mishits a ball, if she, even if she just hits a ground ball to shortstop, I mean, she's got a chance every single time of beating that out. And so I think that that's something that's tremendous. She's got wonderful eye-hand coordination. I mean, she hits well against good teams too. And I think that that's something that goes, unnoticed every now and then, is that, if we're playing an OU or an Oregon or an Arkansas or something like that, those are those games that Sid actually goes 1 for 3 and 2 for 4. And the coaches are like, God, how did she hit that? Sometimes the games that she does her worst in are the games that we probably womped on a team and she just hit the ball hard right at people and didn't have a lot of luck in those games. So, she's just tremendous athlete. 100%, she's given it every single time. And so even if she mishits a ball, she's going to sprint down the line as hard as she can, because she knows she's got a chance of beating that out.
Of course, Addie hit 33 homers, 84 RBIs, among the nation's best. Still steals 25 bases, hitting 391. But those two, I'm sure, would be the first to say they don't do that without the rest of the team and the lineup. So let's talk about the rest of the players that maybe don't get the attention on your explosive offense, because that's the key. They don't get pitched to if you don't have other great hitters in the lineup. So talk about some of the returners that return hitting wise, and then maybe some of the new faces you think could contribute.
Well, I think the biggest one for us, there's three really that come to mind right off the bat. Lauren Lucas had a phenomenal year last year, stepped in, hit 3-hole for us almost the whole season, played in the outfield, had 14 at bats as a freshman, and, worked her rear end off, and is just one of those kids that's, to me, the ones you talk about a little bit when you talk about how kids are special. She didn't let not playing a lot her freshman year get her down. It was a determination, and she got after it and put in the time and the work, and it showed. And her batting average, but just her clutch hitting, when Addie and Sid get walked or whatever, she got up and got some really big hits for us last year. And so we're excited to have her back. And obviously we like the lefty hitter too, and just a really strong lefty hitter for us. Zoe Jones, again, a great transfer for us last year, but I just think has found her home again, and I think for her, I'm a big believer that when you're happy, you play your best. And, I think she's in her happy place again, and really had a nice year, and wants to go out having a really good year this year. And so I think we'll see some really great things out of her. Lauren Mills, she was kind of in and out of the lineup a little bit early on, and then kind of a mainstay towards the second half of the season. But I mean, Lola can hit the ball off the YMCA in right field. I mean, the girl has some crazy power. I think she hit, and I'm just guessing here, 15 home runs last year, and she probably had 50 less at bats than everybody in our starting lineup. So, just tremendous power there. And for us, leadership experience. Zoe, her, and Sid are all fifth years, have been playing for a while, and know what it takes to be successful. And so for me, I'd put our top 5 hitters right off the bat up against everybody in the league. I think that they're tremendous power. Just the ability to make solid contact between those 5 is huge. And we've got a couple freshmen. Taylor Solacek, she's a freshman, came out of the Nebraska Gold organization. Man, I'll tell you what, there's some Addie power in her, and kind of that same type of mentality, same program, obviously. Struggled quite a bit in the fall, just with some mechanical things, but has just been absolutely determined to get in the lineup and knows that the way into our lineup a lot of times is offensively, and has just been absolutely destroying the ball. And so for us, she actually is better going at about 90% than 100%, and I think she's realizing that a little bit. So we could see some really good things out of her. Caroline Talent, another kid on our team, walked onto our program last year, and just gets it. She's an engineering major, very smart, thinks about it, methodical, understands what she needs to do to, fix her fundamentals, change her swing, do whatever, and has really, just in a year and a half, I mean, transformed herself into a power hitter. And I think somebody that could end up being a pretty big program changer for us. Doesn't have a ton of softball experience. And so to me, she had such a huge upside. And so she's still working to reach her ceiling. And I think she's a long way to go from that ceiling, but we're really liking where she's at. Bailey Urban's a returner. She tore ACL last year, so she missed the conference season, and so we'll have her back. She's still not 100%, but she's getting after it a little bit. She's been swinging the bat really, really well, which has been good to see. Lainey Brown's returning behind the plate, and so she's obviously somebody that we're going to count on from a pitching and catching perspective, but she's really been swinging it so much better this year. Kristen Nelson, great defensively, and so she's one that has to pick it up with the bat a little bit. In fact, we just did a little workout this morning, and she gets it and understands that, she's going to have to hit to get in the lineup. And so you've got quite a few people. Cameron Compton, who's a returner. I mean, there's a lot of girls on this team that were waiting for people to graduate. And one of those people was Neely at first base. She'd been kind of a mainstay there. And so there's quite a few people, Cam that's fighting for a spot there, and potentially Zoe playing there, potentially Jess Garcia playing there, Caroline. So, I think offensively we're in a really good spot. We're excited about, where the kids are at. We're not as heavy on the lefty side as we'd like to be. We're a little bit more righty heavy right now, but we'll hopefully get that figured out here in the future. And, I enjoy throwing batting practice to them. I don't have an ego by any means. So when someone hits one off of the street off me, I'm all about it, so, the better I can make them feel, the better they're going to perform. And they've been feeling pretty good lately off me. So hopefully that continues.
You might be the only person in the country that enjoys pitching to your lineup. That probably, your offense there. I'll tell you that. Obviously, the question everybody's going to be asking you, and it's the question I see I'm asking like every coach in the American this year, is your pitching. And obviously, you lose two great pitchers there in McDonald and Bingham. Great experience. You do bring back Allison Cooper, you mentioned earlier. Just talk about your pitching, and I'm sure that was not part of your thinking when you threw her last year. You threw her because you felt she could help you win right away last year, but that experience that she got last year could pay off for her now and your team this year.
Well, Al had some great games for us last year. She threw a heck of a game against Houston, great game against Minnesota, pitched a great one against Illinois. I mean, she had some really great games for us, and I think for her, using that experience and kind of channeling that's going to be a big deal to us. The circle's, going to be the big question mark. And, I think we've got some capable pitchers. I think they've got to find confidence, one, trying to get them to understand a little bit that our offense provided 7.3 runs or something nuts like that per game last year. So, if we can keep our numbers down in the circle a little bit, you're going to have a lot of, help behind you when it comes to the offense. We've got a great defense out there. And I think that that's something to really keep in the back of their mind, but they're young. We've got a freshman, Alex Aguilar, from the Texas area, pitched for Texas Glory. And, she was a bulldog for Ed Nadine's Texas Glory team back in the day, and ended up moving to the Bombers for last year. But she's got some good stuff, and it's just a matter of her still figuring it out. And I think all coaches can relate to that freshman dude. You got to understand it's not easy. you are the center of attention, which is awesome, but you got to put in the work and the time and get uncomfortable, and maybe what worked in high school isn't going to necessarily work as well in the collegiate level. People make really great adjustments and things like that, but she threw a really great game against Mizzou in the fall, and I thought that was something hopefully that gave her some confidence. And actually Lauren Howell came in and closed that game out. She was a transfer from Arkansas, and so between the two of them, I think actually Lauren started and Alex came in, now that I think about that, in that game. They got some good fall experience, and that was something that I think will help us. And a lot of different looks. We've got 5 pitchers. We've got 2 freshman pitchers. Alex is a righty, and then we've got a left-handed pitcher that I think will be able to throw in certain situations, more of your middle reliever, and her name is Sarah Proberts. Just can kind of throw some people off balance a little bit. And then we've got Kenzie Schofer, who pitched a little last year, not a ton, but is growing and getting stronger, and kind of starting to figure things out. But I think the biggest 3 for us are going to be Alex and Allie and then Lauren, and just kind of figuring out how to get them to pitch with confidence and use their defense. I think our defense is outstanding. A freshman that I didn't talk about hitting wise and should have, was Sammy Hood. Really coming around, but defensively, Sammy Hood is a Kaylee Hecker, and what I know, Kaylee Hecker is one of the best defensive players to play in the American Conference, and maybe even in the country. And there's a lot of similarities between them with their hands and arm slots and things like that. So, just getting your pitchers to understand they don't have to do too much. They just got to keep, the ball in play, and limit the number of pitches they throw each inning, and rely on their good stuff. And we're going to give them the offensive and defensive support to help them.
You like throwing multiple starters, like last year you threw it'll be McDonald, Bingham, Cooper, in no particular order. Is that something you feel, even though you're young, you could still accomplish having 3 different starters, or is that something that's going to evolve once the season gets going?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with matchups. We watch as much film and try to get as much information on our opponent as we possibly can. So, when you've got a lot of right-handed hitters in a lineup, a lefty pitcher is not necessarily your best option in that type of a situation. But if you've got a lot of lefties in the lineup, then they are. And, just different things like that are the things that we look for. And do we want to keep the ball in play a little bit more? Is it a super windy day blowing in? Is it a windy day blowing out? I mean, there's a lot of different factors that always kind of fit in that mold of like, okay, who's our best option today? And so we'll continue to use that type of a rotation. I mean, I think like most, we're going to be rotating a lot, and not necessarily having a pitcher that pitches an entire game. I'm not sure we have that right now. We're going to have somebody that comes in and gives a different look to maybe shut down the last 2 innings of a game and things like that, just because I don't think right now we have that one dominant pitcher that can throw 7 and keep a team, especially with the offenses now out there, a team off balance without them making an adjustment.
That could become the theme this year in the American. I mentioned, you lost your two of the top pitchers you had in the rotation. South Florida, Georgina Cora graduated. UCF loses Gianna Mancha and Kamal Woodall as well. I mean, that's just to name a few. There's other teams that have lost pitchers too. I've never really seen this before, where a league loses this much talent pitchers. Now, there's a lot of young pitching that's talented. We know that has potential, but it's young. It's kind of unique, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if in your years of coaching, I've never seen anything like this, where it's kind of wide open as far as the conversation of who's the best pitcher after, obviously Corrick's been the best pitcher in the league for the last handful of years, but it seems kind of wide open this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think offense is going to play a big factor, which was something we're pretty excited about. And I think at the end of the day, those first 6 weeks of the season, I think everybody's eyes are going to be scouting the type of pitching that, Central Florida's throwing, and obviously who South Florida is going to be relying on. And the same with us, and, Houston lost a couple, and, it'll be interesting. I think that, if I know Ken and if I know Cindy, who I think both are great coaches, they've got another one that was waiting in the wings to step into those roles and do a really good job. And hopefully, we'll continue to keep getting better in the circle each and every year.
That being said, when you look at the USF box score in the roster, you don't see the name Cork. There's a part of you that's kind of relieved a little bit, like, oh, because you lost a lot of sleep over the years.
A part of me, my whole body is relieved when I won't see her. And I would put that in there with Mancha and
That's
Woodall. I
true.
mean,
Yeah.
those girls, those three, and I don't want to say, I mean, Court carried South Florida. I mean, she was their team, and their offense was scrappy enough a lot of times to scratch a couple runs across with their speed and athleticism and things like that. But I mean, those three pitchers were difference makers. They were the reasons that their teams got into the postseason last year. Our team got into the postseason because we had good pitching, but we got into the post. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. So, I just, that's a huge part of it, and we're excited about it. But at the end of the day, that there's something that's going to be driving those teams, and the same with East Carolina, Houston, Tulsa, Memphis. I mean, new coaching changes make a big difference. So you can't look past anybody. I think the American's going to be strong, and I'm excited to see what it looks like.
I'm curious. You saw UCF obviously up close as well as anybody. To see them host and win a regional, get to the supers, is that inspiring to your returners and your players? That hey, that's a team we were like right there, one play or two. I mean, you've had 2 incredible years of battles with them, and they got to the supers. That's got to be inspirational to say for your players, saying we could beat them this year and beyond.
Yeah, I think right off the bat, first weekend we play them in conference, and I think everybody knows that's a big weekend. And um, you know, like you said, I mean, game two of that series last year went into extra innings. It was a tight game, and the Friday and Sunday were a little more lopsided, but I think at the end of the day, it's such a great rivalry and such a good respect across the field from both teams because they can hit, they play great defense, they run really well, they always pitch well. And we know when we face them, we've got to play our best. And you get excited for them. I mean, when they got to host this past year, that was huge. How often do you see Michigan going to Central Florida, for a regional? And and they got a little taste of Wichita State when they got sent to OU,
Yeah.
of what we have to deal with the regional, situation. But good for them, and hopefully something that they can continue to build their program around. And I have such great respect for Cindy. I think she does, a fantastic job with her program. And just to see their growth and their I would say dominance last year. I thought that they dominated a lot of teams. It's cool to see, and so we've got to be ready for them. And we ran the course with them a little bit the year before, and know what that feels like, and know how hard that was. These 6 weeks leading up to that weekend are big, and we've got to get ourselves ready, and we've got some great opponents to do that. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Great opponents. You're going to start out at the Bobcat Classic up in St. Marcos, where you got Texas State as the host, with Villanova, who's won the Big East, and they were in that Orlando regional you were talking about. They won the Big East. Coach Orchard's done a great job there. Kent State's in that field. You're playing at San Diego State and Stacy Newman and company. You're going to be playing at a tournament in San Diego where Boise State's in there, San Diego, among others. You're going to Denton to play the tournament hosted by Rodney DeLong in North Texas. I mean, you're not doing it. You're traveling all over the place to fighting play. You're playing. You got Stanford. This is a big one. Stanford's coming to your place to play for a rare at home. You've got Nebraska coming in. You got Arkansas coming in. First of all, get season tickets now if you're in Wichita area. Holy smokes, you got Minnesota at home. That is an incredible home slate. Maybe one of the deepest you've ever had.
Yeah, it's the most home games we've ever had, which is awesome. We only had 11 last year, 20, I think 26, 27 this year. And yeah, just some things fell our way. Obviously, Stanford's going to KU for a tournament. So we asked them if they wanted to come in and play a Thursday game before they got in. Got Minnesota to come down. Arkansas and us have been kind of trading back and forth. We went to their tournament last year. Oklahoma State and OU are coming our way. But it just kind of worked out. It's fortunate for us. Last year we were on the road 6 weekends in a row. Then we had our bye weekend was the first weekend in conference, and so we took advantage of that. This year we're on the road 3, home for 3, and then we head off to Central Florida. So hopefully, being able to sleep in our own beds a little bit more in the month of March will be helpful. But the toughness of the schedule is a big part of it. And I think that's something we all learned from getting into the postseason within, when you're not getting the automatic bid and you're getting an at-large, your RPI is a big deal. And so you've got to play the tough teams if you want to try to make sure that your resume looks good enough to get in.
That's an incredible home slate alone. Like, that is, like, seriously, if I'm in the area, you need to get your season tickets, because you're going to have some standing room only games from a ticket standpoint.
It's the best deal in town too. Season tickets are only $100. So when you really look at it at the end of the day, it's like $2.70 a game. So it's a pretty good little deal.
What speaks volumes too about your program, to the point now where you've got these programs that are willing to play you because they know, you are going to help their resume as well. Right? Because that, before it's like, we don't really benefit from, but now they're really, we play Wichita State. That's going to help our resume. We're going to get good competition. That speaks volumes to where your program's risen, where people are, let's bring them into a tournament to stack our tournaments.
Yeah. It's been good. It's been awesome to work with a lot of the coaches, and and obviously we do our best to return as many favors as possible. I think it'll be tough for us to get up to Minnesota. In fact, we tried, but with the conference changing next year and us going to 10 teams, we start a lot earlier and we don't have as many open weekends. So I think that's going to change our coaching, scheduling philosophy a little bit, and we'll have to be a little more pragmatic with that. So, but we try to return the favor as much as possible.
You mentioned that obviously the legal change after this year, comings and goings. How is that from a transition standpoint? It sounds like it's already starting to take place because it's affecting your schedule a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all had to jump on board right away, knowing that we're going to go from 7 to 10 teams in the league, and voted to play everybody. So we didn't want to avoid certain people certain years, because I think that it's important for us to play everybody. Voted to have the tournament still, and so once you did that, you started looking at it. Well, with the tournament and playing everybody, that's 10 weekends, and it's a considerable amount more travel for us. But the cool thing for me the way that I try to look at it is currently with our current schedule, we only get 9 home conference games. With the addition of the 5 teams and losing the 2, we'll either have 12 or 15. So right off the bat, we're guaranteed more home games, which I think is a benefit, and something that we're all looking forward to. And then we're adding some good teams. I mean, we're excited. North Texas, Charlotte, I think is a program that's up and coming. UAB's had some really great success. I think, Florida Atlantic's got a new young coach that I think's gonna, get going, and she's got some prime real estate to get some kids down in that area that, want to play softball in the warmth. And and UTSA, I think it, has been a program that has had some success. And so, we're adding 5. It's going to be tough losing Houston and Central Florida, but we wish them the best. And obviously they're going to be in the Big 12. So that's kind of our domain over in here and what we're surrounded by. So we'll keep an eye on them, and get to, watch them and how they compete against the OUs and the Oklahoma States and the Kansases of the world that are kind of in our back door.
Yeah, there's probably going to be a part of you that's like, you see what I got to deal with now? Backyard a little bit. You mentioned all the changes in the American. I'm curious, your thoughts on instant replay. That's become, as you've used it in the postseason a lot, where's the stands as far as the American moving forward? Is replay, you think, part of the future here as far as the conference regular season is concerned?
Yeah, it sounds to me, to my understanding, that in the 2024 season, you must have replay. We will have replay at all of our games here, all of our conference games. We may not have it for all of our tournament games, just because we have a couple conflicts with some men's basketball and things like that. So we share, I think, a video deal. I don't know. It's just a lot of technology involved in it, but I think it's huge for our program. I mean, we want to get the calls right, and we know that umpires aren't perfect. And if we can make sure that we're getting the calls right for the integrity of the game, great. And I think there's a couple other programs this year that are going to be able to use replay as well. And it'd be good practice. I think last year we only had replay in one game before I went to the conference tournament, and so that one game I did it twice just to kind of see what happened. It went our way once and went against us the
Right.
other time, but um, I just think from an integrity perspective, all the umpires want to get the calls right. I don't think there's an umpire out there that wants to get the call wrong, and they're not always going to be perfect. So if we can take advantage of it and use it, I think it's going to be great for the game.
Yeah, no, because you bring it up. It was used in the conference tournament, and I've talked to coaches that like it is a bit of an adjustment from the standpoint of we don't use it the whole year, and all of a sudden you got to use it in the postseason. It's kind of it's kind of a unique thing from a coaching staff standpoint.
Yeah, there's one thing I'll be interested in, and I'm curious about it. Sometimes the instant replay takes a little bit longer than the couple minutes that it's supposed to take. And so think that they need to figure out the pitcher just standing there. There for a while there, they're like, oh, they can't throw, they can't do anything, you can't huddle, you
Right.
can't do this. And it's like, some of that stuff needs to work its way out. And I think it will be over time. But at the end of the day, the benefit definitely is something that I think will help the game.
Last question. Obviously, between now and the season gets going, what is the keys for your team to accomplish your internal goals? If you do blank, we will be successful. What's the keys for this year's team?
Well, if we stick together, if we work hard and continue to keep competing, and you touched on, we've got a tough schedule, and so we can't let that tough schedule and maybe some games not going our way beat us down. I think we set the schedule up for RPI, but also for the conference, and right off the bat, we've got to be ready to go against a really great team on the road. And so we're going to use those first 3 weekends on the road to kind of get our minds right of what that weekend's going to be like, and hopefully gain some confidence and get after it. But we control two things, and that's our effort and our attitude every single day, and that's in practice and in everything that we do outside of softball. And if our kids put in the effort and the attitude, I think we'll have a good program this year.
Well, Coach, we look forward to seeing your team play. I'll look forward to seeing you when you come down to Orlando later in the year. But in the meantime, good luck when the start of the season. Thanks for always taking the time to talk to us. I know it's busy time as you get set for the season, but we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks so much, Eric.